In my case, I even asked the waiter how much I should tip, so I gave her the 75% she recommended and moved on. Of course, with
75%? No chance. No, 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 no. I believe it's 20%. No, wait, no, this was a joke, right? What's up, my friend? Today I'll be reacting to 7 ways British and American restaurants are very different. This should be a fascinating one. But before I go into that, can I ask you for one thing? If you can leave a like on this video, thank you so much for that, my friend. This is the best way to show support. If you can subscribe, well, in that case, forget about it. You make my day. Have that in consideration. Now, link for the original video in my description. Lawrence, what an amazing content creator. Give him some love. That said, let's play it.
And I'm sure to some degree there'll be places in Britain that sell Chicago-style pizza even though it's nothing like it. Or even in my birthplace of Cleethorpes, Chicago-style burgers, whatever that is.
That's crazy. What?
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond. And one of those memos pertains to restaurants.
Oh boy.
And because food is involved, restaurants happen to be a kind of central hub for where British and American differences play out more broadly. Because we see differences in not just the food, but the terminology that's used and some of the customs that are practiced and the practices that are customed. And of course, the mere concept of a restaurant, I don't know why I'm doing that, the mere concept of a restaurant is universal. But the way that they are presented to and used by Brits and Americans is subtly and sometimes not so subtly different. And so here are 7 ways in which British and American restaurants are very different. For Brits moving to or even visiting the United States of America, one of the biggest culture shocks, at least for me, was the kind of round-the-clock attention that servers pay to their customers. What's that? Your glass of water is empty? We can't be having that. American servers come right on over, minus the whistling sound, usually. And
oh, that's amazing. But you can get drunk. But that's amazing, honestly. I mean, this is basically the hospitality in America that is quite amazing from what I've been learning from you guys. Here in Portugal, it's probably very similar to Britain, I would assume. But I love the way America does that, you know. I would spend so much money on a restaurant if I go to America because I cannot say no, you know. Okay.
And in between that and a bite of your broccoli, American waitstaff will be over just to simply ask, how's that food tasting? Can I get you anything else? Golly gee, that's a nice accent. Which part of Australia are you from? Those kind of questions. Whereas British waitstaff are staff that, you know, wait to come over until you're all done. And part of this...
Yeah, to be honest, is the same here. Oh, I love America. I really do. This is amazing. This is how people should be, honestly. Someone in the comments will tell, André, that's because of the tipping. Even if that's true, which I'm not even sure, but even if that's true, it's still an amazing service.
This is tied to the notion of tips and tipping. In Britain,
okay,
until you're all done. And part of this is tied to the notion of tips and tipping. In Britain, contrary to popular belief, servers do make a bulk of their income from tips. But unlike in America, tipping is voluntary and not at all expected. A lot of Brits...
Exactly the same here in Portugal. Exactly the same.
From tips. But unlike in America, tipping is voluntary and not at all expected. A lot of Brits who come to the United States, myself included, don't know this at first. In my case, I even asked the waiter how much I should tip, so I gave her the 75% she recommended and moved on. Of course, with
75%? No chance. No. I believe it's 20%. No, wait, no, this was a joke, right? No, I believe it's 20%. I have, someone told me in the comments that I have to give 20%. If I'm poor, I imagine 10% would be enough. No, it's 25. This is crazy.
How much I should tip, so I gave her the 75% she recommended and moved on. Of course, with time, I came to learn that the expected amount here in the United States of America is 15 to 20% of your bill and or check. We'll come on to terminology later. It's often been noted, especially within the fast food industry, that portion sizes in the United States of America are much larger than their European counterparts. But often...
Okay, this one I can verify more or less because I have friends that actually went to New York, Miami, places like that, and they tried fast food in America, and they told me, yeah, it's quite bigger than what we have here. So this seems to be true.
In the United States of America are much larger than their European counterparts. But often, depending on where you go, this can also be true of sit-down restaurants. One of the first major American sit-down chain restaurants that I visited was a little place called Applebee's. And at the likes of Applebee's, but also the Olive Garden or TGI Friday or any number of other chains, your appetizer almost feels like a main course / entree. Again, terminologies later. And by the time that the actual main course arrives, you eat it merely out of politeness, while pretending that this is all fine. And then, this is the really funny bit, they ask you if you want to see the dessert menu. And of course you can't say no because you're addicted to cheesecake. And that's always humongous and rich as opposed to humongous and poor, which is what you are when you leave the restaurant. Except that cheap joke doesn't quite work because American food on the whole is actually cheaper compared to the food served in Britain, which is partially how you account for the portion size difference.
And that's amazing again. I love that. Yeah, but you have to tip 20%, so you also have to have that equation in mind, right? But I like that.
Now, after a while, I noticed that there were Americans all around me that instead of ploughing through this mountain of calories in one sitting, answered yes to what was then an unfamiliar question to me. That's right, it's completely normal in the United States of America to have your food boxed at the end of the meal with the intention of you taking it home.
Okay. I was not aware of this. Oh, but this is tremendous. This is tremendous. So, if you don't eat everything, you actually can bring the food back. Sometimes people do it here, but this is kind of rare, I have to admit. My mother does this all the time, but I always thought that was a bit weird. Even though I was like, yeah, okay, do it. Oh, but in America, this is a common thing, really. I love that.
And refrigerate.
I mean, food, you cannot waste that.
Or just eat it later that night if you're feeling lucky. And of course now that makes sense, right? I mean, you've paid your money for that food, you want to get your money's worth. But on top of that, it cuts down on waste. But at first, just because of what I was used to back home, it seemed weird to be taking leftovers home from a restaurant. In Britain...
Yeah, honestly... People may not like what I'm about to say, but there is almost a poor connection with this here. If you do it, oh man, look at that poor guy. Went to the restaurant, but he's saving for the next meal with this. Oh man. Not that I personally care, as you guys can imagine. My mom did that all the time. But yeah, there is that connotation, I would say. Or maybe it's just in my head, I'm not sure.
As evidenced by this BBC article from a few years back. We've historically felt embarrassed even to ask for a box or a doggy bag because I don't know, I haven't a clue why, actually. Either way, I think leftovers are great to the extent that I have Indian food for breakfast. Don't judge me. Buffets. Aside from the fact that America seems to be just a tad more into them than Britain, there's an aspect of the buffet going experience that differs greatly between the two countries. Where I was from, depending on the buffet in question, I almost got the impression that it was rude to the kitchen staff to ask for a new plate when you're going up for seconds. In other words, whenever I went for, say, a Chinese buffet, I would go up, get my plate, scoop on all the food, go back to my table, realize that I am unrelentingly gluttonous, and then go back up for seconds using the same plate. It made me...
Yeah, I also do that. What? Is that wrong?
Feel good that while devouring lots of solids, I'd done a solid to the kitchen staff. That could be taken so many ways. Whereas once I moved to the United States, I realized that this was considered either weird or unhygienic. At American buffets, customers are expected to get a new, cleaner plate when they go up for seconds, because this is a measure seen at preventing cross-contamination. But I have to say, after...
Okay, again, not aware of this. There is some buffets that you can do that, but I pick a plate, I go with that until the end. Until the end. No chance I change that. Now I feel bad, because it seems like you guys don't like that at all. But yeah.
Practicing both methods, neither has caused me any personal problems, but while we're on the subject of Chinese food, that brings us on to this. I think it's fair to say that in both Britain and America, ethnic food, or food that is usually associated with a country that is not this one, is extremely popular. And to varying degrees, no matter if you're talking about the United States or Britain, the same countries are often represented at the dinner table. Off the top of my head, the big one is Chinese food. Except you guessed it.
Oh, Chinese food is really good. Can we agree that Chinese food is really, really good? I love Chinese food. Yeah, I love Chinese food. I was thinking about other type of foods that I like. Indian food, it's good, but Chinese food may be my favorite actually. I never had Mexican food, I mean, I never had. I tried chili and stuff like that, but not. I don't have a restaurant to pick that type of food in a. If I went, for example, right away, you know what I mean. But Chinese, yeah, there is a lot here.
British Chinese food and American Chinese food is vastly different. In Britain,
no.
Chinese food is often spicy.
Yeah, this is more or less what I get actually.
And American Chinese food is vastly different. In Britain, Chinese food is often spicy, sometimes curry-based. In the US, on the other hand, Chinese food tends to be centered around standalone fried meats, usually of the chicken variety. Now, these are not entirely absent from Britain, but one way that America differentiates itself is that its Chinese food tends to be a lot sweeter than in Britain. But whichever way you
Okay, that makes sense. Again, this is a tremendous video. I was not aware of a bunch of this type of stuff.
slice it, I planned that. Both British and American Chinese cuisine is a modified version of what actual Chinese people eat in China. And this seems to be a common theme that actually unites Britain and America. Take, for example, Indian food. While it should be pointed out that Indian food is more widely eaten in Britain than in the United States, and that in my experience, certain Indian curries tend to be spicier than their American counterparts, neither is anywhere near as spicy as authentic Indian. On the other hand, in terms of
This makes sense, but Indian food, like I was saying, I like it, but not my top three,
everything I just said there, almost the exact opposite is true of Mexican food. America, by virtue of its
Mexican food, I feel like I would put that maybe even in the number one position if I go to America. All the tacos stuff seems really, really great. Amazing, actually.
neighborly status with Mexico, eats way more Mexican food than Britain does. Even if, by all accounts, tacos and the like have started to make waves in Britain. But even America's version of Mexican food is often a departure from what's eaten south of the border, with authentic Mexican food often...
See, this type of stuff is not a thing here at all. You cannot, in my city, it's very difficult to try. In Lisbon, you may be able, of course, but yeah, this is very difficult to find.
Food is often a departure from what's eaten south of the border, with authentic Mexican food often less spicy than Americans are used to. And it was in the restaurants of America that I got a first-hand feel for how America likes to modify the national dishes of other countries to create what amounts to their own version. Because they even do this with English cuisine, and that brings us on to this. If you were to ask me to name 3 dishes from both countries, off the top of my head I would say this. For Britain, fish and chips, Sunday roast, and a full English breakfast.
Okay.
For America, hamburgers, hot dogs, and pizza. And yes,
Jesus Christ, that was bad. Okay, you just said 3 fast food. You know what? I'm gonna save you guys. I'm gonna say the 3 best dishes for. Okay, this will be difficult actually. Okay, sorry. Apple pie. That counts, no? Apple pie. Peanut butter. And that's it. I'm just going with those 2.
yes, I realise that all of those have disputed or undisputed origins in Germany and Italy, but over time they have become synonymous with the United States. But to a lesser degree, and because of American influence, hamburgers, hot dogs and pizza can all be found in restaurants in the UK.
Actually, number 3, deep fried chicken. That counts, right? I hope so.
And I'm sure to some degree there'll be places in Britain that sell Chicago-style pizza even though it's nothing like it. Or even in my birthplace of Cleethorpes, Chicago-style burgers, whatever that is. But in reverse, whenever America tries to replicate popular British dishes, it's sort of like being in an alternate universe. It's great, but it's different. Very rarely do you get fish and chips where the chips/fries are thick cut and greasy, and the fish is singular and large. Instead, you usually get 3 or 4 smaller pieces of fish that are usually a tad saltier than what you'd expect back home. Oh, and did I mention there's no mushy peas?
That looks disgusting.
Honestly, it's like being in the south of England. And in terms of the other two, the Sunday roast and the full English breakfast, well, I found those a lot harder to come by in the US than fish and chips. Even at those pubs that, you know, every state has, that purport to be authentically British.
Okay, before we go to terminology, let me say one thing. I actually believe Portuguese food is quite better than the UK food. And jokes aside about the typical dishes of America, American food is really good. And I would make a real top, because I was joking a bit. Apple pie probably will go still. Texas barbecue, American barbecue in general, but let's go Texas barbecue. And I don't know the correct, I believe it's soul food in Louisiana. That also looks quite good. That's a nice top 3. Am I crazy? I think that's a nice top 3. And I think it's tremendous food, honestly. I guess you can also make the top 3 with fast food, but, you know.
And lastly, we can't talk about British versus American restaurant differences without talking about the terminology. You see, it's one thing to get your food boxed at the end of a sit-down meal, but many of us might like to take it home without sitting down in the restaurant in the first place. In Britain, I always knew this as getting takeaway.
Takeaway. We actually also use this exactly expression. We did not even translate this. Takeaway. This is very common here.
Which is why I was profoundly confused when I worked in an American office environment and they talked about the key takeaways from the meeting. I thought I was getting curry and chips. In America, this is referred to as takeout or sometimes carry out. And
no chance, Americans. Love you guys, but takeaway sounds better. Takeout. Takeout sounds... no chance.
An office environment and they talked about the key takeaways from the meeting. I thought I was getting curry and chips. In America, this is referred to
carry out, take out. Oh, okay, normally I'm against the UK. In this case, no, my friends. Takeaway sounds much better than take out. I'm going to the takeaway. I'm going to the takeout. No, that sounds weird. That sounds weird. Sorry, my friends. We may have to rethink this.
To as takeout or sometimes carry out. And regardless of portion size, we can't even agree on what to call each meal. In the US, for the most part, the meal immediately preceding the main meal is usually known as an appetizer. In Britain, I always refer to this as a starter.
Oh no, the starter, this is weird stuff. I'm with Americans on this one. The appetizer, I also like that. And I in my mind that makes more sense. The starter, what is this? No chance. The appetizer, for sure.
But some, as the French do, might call it an entree. And this is
the entry. I actually like that also. Okay.
Where things get confusing, because Americans and Canadians alike use the word entree to mean the main meal. For us, the main...
Entree in Portuguese is entrada. Oh my god, I started speaking Portuguese now. Basically, what I was about to say is entry, entrada. I may like entry a bit more. Never mind, forget the appetizer.
meal is usually known as the main course. If it's a Sunday roast, that main course will include a Yorkshire pudding, and this is where things get doubly confusing, because we in Britain also use the word pudding as a catch-all term for dessert. In fairness, we do also interchangeably use the word dessert. In America, the word pudding is more specific, and the catch-all term has been deserted in favour of dessert. And the implements with which we eat this food, i.e. the knife, fork and spoon, is known collectively in the United States as silverware, whereas this word, when used used in Britain would pertain more to ornate metal plates, or perhaps metallic jugs, or sports trophies. A lot of the time, instead, we'll collectively refer to knives, forks, and spoons as cutlery. And as we all know, it's very rude to leave a restaurant without paying. And this is why we ask for the bill, or at least we do in Britain. Because most of the time here in...
Honestly, I thought he was about to say, in America it's not rude to leave without paying. I was like, man... Okay, but this was very confusing to me. I use all that words. So the British English and the American English, we need André English. And that's not here. This is the first, no joke, this is the first time I see this word. Cutlery? Really? This is a fork. I mean, there is no way to call this a different thing, right, my friends? This is a fork. Pudding, no, pudding is a dessert. Dessert can have puddings, right? Please tell me I'm correct on this one. Main course, yeah, this is a degree or 7. No chance. Starter, like I said, is okay, but is weird. Appetizer or entry is a bit better. Sorry, I just had to do a quick check on all of this because there is a couple of crazy claims right there. Okay.
Dogs or sports trophies. A lot of the time, instead, we'll collectively refer to knives, forks, and spoons as cutlery. And as we all know, it's very rude to leave a restaurant without paying. And this is why we ask for the bill, or at least we...
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Ask for the bill. No chance in America you guys say something different. No chance. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it.
We do in Britain, because most of the time here in the US, Americans will ask for the check. And that's it for this episode.
For the check? Okay. Yeah, I will ask for the bill. Never. For the check? That sounds so weird. I want the check. No, give me the bill. Oh man, is this true? Honestly, I really thought, oh, I may have to react to a video comparing British English versus American English. Do you guys agree with that? Tell me in the comments. To be honest, like I said, I don't have... André English is the English I speak. But I actually agree with a lot of stuff in Britain, and I also agree with a lot of stuff in America. So this could be... I have my own version.
Most of the time here in the US, Americans will ask for the check. And that's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below if you've been to restaurants in both countries and what some of your observations were. I'm Lawrence Brown. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. And a big Applebee's portion-sized shout out to my patrons who make these videos possible. If you would like...
Okay, great video, Lawrence. Always does great stuff. It's just me, or this was a crazy video? Because honestly, I like this type of videos because sometimes I react to stuff that more or less I know. A lot of stuff here I had no idea at all. This was impressive, honestly. Thank you for someone suggesting this on the comments, so thank you, whatever was the person, I don't remember, but this was crazy. And that's it for today, my friends. Hope you end up enjoying this video. If that's the case, do not forget to leave a like. Also consider to subscribe if you are new to my channel. And also let me remember you about one thing. I have a Patreon community. I put videos there a bit earlier than I put on YouTube. So if you want to support me and have access to early content, go to my Patreon. I will leave a link on my description. Take a look at that. You can also scan the QR code you'll be seeing here. And that's it.